feed. It loves my past. It's always taunting, but somehow out of grasp. Can you hear me? 'Cause I'm lost, and I may never come back again. And while my heart keeps holding on, I know I'll never be the same again. It talks to me, it holds my hand, it showers me with things I can't understand. It has no reason, it knows no time, it's constantly watching, so it's not left behind. Can you hear me? 'Cause I'm lost, and I may never come back again. And while my heart keeps holding on, I know I'll never be the same again. Can you hear me? 'Cause I'm lost, and I may never come back again. And while my heart keeps holding on, I know I'll never be the same again. You 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 know I'll never be the same again. Can you hear me? 'Cause I'm lost, and I may never come back again. And while my heart keeps holding on, I know I'll never be the same again. 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 I know I'll never be the same again.
What up, everyone? DJ Anubis
And DJ Neko.
here with you with another episode of Global Unscripted, where we sit and talk about social issues, political issues, just drama across the web and interwebs and history, etc., etc., etc. This time around, we're going to be talking mainly about the pay gap between men and women. Is it a myth? Is it true? I know my partner in crime here, Neko, is going to have a lot to say on this, but I have some things I think I'm going to push back on a little bit too. Not so much with her, but just in the general idea. I also have a couple of quick videos that we'll be listening to and reacting to that try to talk from both sides of it. But first, and she doesn't know about this, but there's a new cartoon that's on X. It was created by either Elon Musk or somebody along that lines for X, called The New Norm. And basically what it's described as an animated comedy tackling divisive issues facing America through family-friendly lens, providing a shared space to laugh together. But we're going to look at the trailer kind of in a minute, or at least a little clip from it. But the backlash to it has been pretty strong because it's a conservative viewpoint that tries to address or go through an anti-woke lens. And so, you know, we see different things with like Velma, which is very lefty. I forget the name of the girl that does that from your show, The Office, the Indian chick, the comedian.
Oh, the girl who plays Kelly Kapoor.
Yeah,
I can't think of her name. Mindy Kaling.
Yeah, so that's her show. She's portraying Velma in that, and that's her writing there. But it's taken a lot of backlash because it's just really butchered up. It's really it's not well written. It's just crazy and off the wall. But this is like trying to compete with that on the other side of the fence, but it's not even funny at all either. So it's really taken a lot of heat. So
I think people try to overcorrect. They see something and they're like, well, we're going to go completely 180.
Right. Yeah. It's like no one can just have just regular comedy anymore where we
let's just
don't overthink
let's have a conversation. Let's try to see things from both sides.
So here's just a little clip or trailer for The New Norm.
Okay.
What's that?
Progress. It's the new norm.
The new norm ain't the same as the old norm.
I'm the old norm. I want normal beer.
Warning, perimeter reached.
Ugh. It's your fault I got house arrest.
You're the one who threatened the school board.
I gently suggested
Yelled.
they stop brainwashing my daughter that girls aren't girls and men aren't men.
Sometimes they're neither, or both, or furry and dressed like dogs.
Ow! Janice! What's that?
Warning, offensive.
Actually, that is one of my pronouns. Also they, them, and me.
You're non-binary?
How do you know that word?
I learned it in school.
That's why I'm locked up.
Norm, the judge agreed to conditional parole.
What condition?
Where's my room?
I should pause for a second. If you hear this noise in back of us next door, it's our Spanish neighbors playing their music excessively loud. Can't really complain. It's only like 4:00 in the afternoon, but if it translates over to the audio, we apologize.
It's funny though, because they love cranking it.
Yep.
Sometimes,
just don't-
sometimes Iron Maiden, like they just.
We just don't like it when they crank it at 11 o'clock at night when we're trying to sleep.
Yes.
That's
You're
staying here?
Chaz is part of a new government program.
To re-educate homophobic, transphobic, racist.
Charlie, finally, someone normal.
I don't understand. You're black.
Did that just Black Whisper?
You're his friend?
And boss, speaking of, when you coming back to the trophy shop?
As soon as I get rid of this, which means I gotta take in that?
Offensive.
Chaz is here to re-educate Norm.
In non-bonery studies.
Offensive.
I'm allergic to dogs.
It's okay. Billy is an emotional support dog and non-binary.
Oh, okay then. Good dog.
I come here to get away from woke.
Trouble at home?
Oh, my boy, or whatever it calls themselves now, is thinking about transitioning.
Reggie?
Try Regina.
Transitioning to what?
Another fumble.
Hopefully not a Jets fan.
Hey, pronoun, this bud's for you.
Offensive.
I can't drink. I'm not 21.
Y'all influenced my boy to cut off his junk, but draw the line at beer?
Can't do this.
Yes, we can.
Find a way to break him. Maybe we can fix the country.
I just want normals beer.
You know there'll be jokes.
The new norm ain't the same as the old norm. Everything's changing and I don't know when. This woke nightmare will end. Thank God for Elon Musk. Heaviest shit most means. X is the home for free speech.
I almost forgot. We're going to Disney World.
Make America funny again.
Yep. So there you have it.
It's not funny.
That's what a lot of people are saying.
Like, it's like they overcorrected. Like they took something that was unfunny and then they made something unfunny to make fun of it. I get a lot of this is like satire and it's meant to be over the top, but how many things that we've seen that are over the top are still funny, like Ace Ventura?
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is just like kind of like it's a reactionary thing to what's going on in the world. Like I feel the way that some of these points that are being made, but it's like I don't really see it as a funny thing. Sure, it's kind of hysterical that we have people that try to name dogs non-binary or animals non-binary, but it's still not kind of funny because I feel like it's a mental issue with the people that are trying to do this. Like it's deeper than that. But it's like you can take stuff that's on the left side, if it's like aside from Velma, but you could take something else that might be woke and it might be somewhat funny but this is just not funny. Like, it's not even trying to be really. And I don't really say they can't do it. Like, it's a free, America's land of the free, and you can do whatever you want. And there's people that bitch on, even conservatives are bitching about this, like it's just dumb as fuck, So Elon clearly is just trying to poke a bear and poke back at the left for all their shit.
Trying to start shit.
Yeah,
that's clearly what it is. It's just trying to start shit because like it's really not funny. Like, trust us, we know some of these norms that are completely like just stuck in their ways, and they won't even acknowledge that time is. If 50 years have passed since they were younger, and it's a different world, and they're just so stuck, and they won't even think about like anything else but themselves. That's very true. It's out there, but like you could have made it funnier.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, I can see from the guy that plays Norm is JP Sears. He's a long-haired dude. He's a conservative. He's done some funny stuff on YouTube before. Just when he kind of like makes fun of both sides. And then Dave Rubin, he has his own show. He's a pretty big conservative talk, and he plays Chaz in this. Let's see who else might be involved here. That's only it. They say Larry Elder plays Charlie. I don't know who that is though. Let me see if it gives me any info on him. He's a producer right known for Uncle Tom 2020, Spin City 1996, and the Larry Elder podcast, but I don't really know him too much.
Is he the one he's playing the
Redskin guy?
Yeah, the Redskin guy, the boss / friend.
Yeah, but I don't know too much about him. He's had a few things under his belt, but nothing major that I can know. But like I said, JP Sears, I've seen him on YouTube. But he's done some stuff too. A lot of it's just, it's just like he's been on Tucker Carlson a couple times and stuff like that. So so that's that. That it's just nothing really big on that one. Just something I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, maybe they thought if they would have a funny. What they're really trying to do is make a cartoon Archie Bunker.
It's just mocking.
It's more like you're mocking the other side than like making something funny. That's exactly what they were going for. If you look at the old guy, Yeah,
it's Elon just saying, you guys suck. This is my show, making it look like you suck. But I think it's funny, but no one else does.
For Elon Musk. That's like, yeah. Oh my God. Anyway.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the pay gap between men and women.
Sure. It's really a hard topic to get, because if you look at it very surface level and look at it on paper, there really isn't a pay gap, but it's so much more, I guess, nuanced than that. Because what ends up happening, at least in my experience, usually I'm the one who is the more experienced person, and I get screwed over because women are just, most women, we take on, like when I would have new people start, I take them on and I want to help them. And it doesn't help me. In fact, in times it has actually gotten someone a promotion I was promised, or because I gave them all my information, my ideas, and men don't do that. Men also look at themselves as like, when they get hired, the company should be happy. I'm doing the company a favor. Women are kind of on the opposite side. They are thankful and they want to kind of prove themselves, and we burn ourselves out so fast. Something else, I'm on the other side. I have been the subject of a pay gap where, being an experienced person with 6-7 years experience in my old position, and they would hire new people making several dollars more an hour. Is it because I'm a woman? No, because they were hiring other people. Like, there are other experienced people, and these new people were also getting paid more an hour. But when I found out, like, out of the entire department, I was the one making the least amount of money, and I happened to be a woman, is that a correlation, or is that it just so happens I was doing a lateral move from my old department, And that's just the way that the wage was set when I started. And then we did not have raises for a few years, and they never made up for it. So when new people were coming in, they were making significantly more, period.
Yeah.
It's a nuanced thing, because I felt the effects of, like, I see men who I train get promoted over me. But I also think, as me, I know I have learned a lot about myself in the last couple of years, because I've actually hurt my own career by doing things like that, by taking on people under my wing or teaching them to. Men don't do that. And I've seen it because I worked with nothing but men for the last, like, there's very few women where I work now. The men, and in the last job, like, the men don't care. If another dude fucks up, they don't try to help them. That's just, I'm not saying all men, I'm just saying the men I worked with. I would be more of a, like, don't make that mistake, let me help you. Other dudes would just let them fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, though, I have had guys who have come to me, maybe because I am a woman. It was like, here, you're making a mistake, let me help you. Whereas before, if it was a man, they were like, just let them fuck it up. Because I'm not, like, a lot of guys can be, that I worked with, they could be know-it-alls. So even if you would try to, like, say, hey, you're making a mistake, let me help you, they'd be just fuck off. And I'm like, okay, you do you then. So that's what I mean. It's nuanced. If you look at it on paper and the amount of experience and years, etc., I happen to, in my current position, I make more money than the two men that came with me, because we came together, all got hired at the same time. And we, I had more experience than all of them. And this company that I work for is very formulaic. You have over 5 years experience, you are a D level. And then I had a bachelor's degree, so that gives me more clout. And then I had, like, more years experience doing other things that put me into other projects, so it bumped me up even more. But because of the way I am not good at making strong boundaries with my work life. I can tell you right now, a guy would have been like, no, I'm not doing this unless you change my title from, like, day one, and I didn't. And that's how I get myself in trouble, because I keep thinking I'm doing the right thing, I'm earning my title, it's gonna happen. And then, like, I know it's not gonna happen now, because we just had a big meeting right before 4th of July, and I'm like,
the ball drops.
Yeah, I know nothing's gonna happen, because they just explained how, my bosses have no say now over how, like, the hierarchy of certain things are going to be, because upper management have made decisions. So for all you young girls out there, if any of you are watching, don't waste your time. Don't help people. Look out for yourself and do exactly what your job description is.
Yeah. So the thing about the pay gap, it definitely has some unfairness in there, like, depending on the situation. But there are
women have different circumstances too, not just like me, but, like, most of women have children, so they are not able to get into jobs because if they require more hours, right? But I take that out of the equation for me, because I don't.
Well, the nuance that I'm talking here is, so for instance, it's been brought up before by various people on YouTube and the web, is there are times that men often take jobs that women don't want. So,
but see, I that's why I'm saying I've broken through that.
Yeah, you're a minor exception.
I know, but when you see a woman doing that, and you see a woman still, like, again, I know my faults and I know my strengths and weaknesses, so I know that I am a direct reason why this happened, because men will put that boundary in there. They're like, no, that's not my job. Whereas me, I'm like, and I've seen it with all the men I've worked in. So you're right. Most men would not take any of the jobs that I've taken. Women.
Take the job, yeah.
Most women, a lot of people wouldn't have taken jobs that I've taken. And I've still dealt with it because of many different factors. Is it hard to say because I really was the only woman? And even where I am now, like,
Well, let me get my bullet points out.
Go ahead, get your bullet points out.
So yeah, first, men often do take jobs women don't want. So it could be any kind of construction job, sailing. Like she is the exception there with that.
Electricians,
Experience is a
plumbers.
factor that doesn't get talked about enough. Sometimes the experience works against you. So in some jobs, especially long-term jobs, and it could be men or women, they'll get released because their price tag is too high. So they'll try to go young, even if they're not quite as experienced, but they're cheaper.
It's not even so much age. You're right. It is cheaper. They'll take and this happened at my company. They hack off a bunch of people at the top because they're very high earners. Then they take and spread out their responsibilities to the people who used to be like reporting to the person so the person gets fired, and these other people who were reporting to this higher up person now have his responsibilities, and they are making their same salary, but the other guy is gone.
Now in sports, we've talked about this at length with Caitlin Clark and WNBA and the NBA, and how the NBA has always carried the WNBA. But the women in the league still say they need to be paid as high as men, and that's just not reality. It's just not reality. Like, even though Caitlin Clark has brought more attention to the league, which is good for them.
And I hope she keeps doing it. They need more.
But you see the pushback that this is one thing that Bill Burr always gets right, is that women would rather tear each other down.
Oh, it's 100% true.
Than rather build them up. And so here you have a white girl who's actually a very good basketball player. Granted, she's a rookie, so it's not like she's a Hall of Famer yet, but she's good to the point that she brought attention to the girls' college basketball, which drew my attention. Now, despite like Caitlin Clark, I have not watched a WNBA game. I just don't have time for it. Plus, I do have other sports I'd rather watch. So for me, it's still just a matter of where my interest lies. So do I catch some clips of Clayton when she's playing throughout the year right now? Sure.
Catch her on the news. You'll catch a couple of.
But I do still see like a lot of this pushback on her from the African American players, and it's like, you're just doing yourself a disservice. You want more money, you want more financial gain coming your way. You've got the arena starting to sell out now. Like, ride with it. Doesn't matter your color of your skin, just ride with the fucking thing. Like, quit being so antagonistic and fucking like bitter just because it's not a black girl that's doing this. And you can't say it's never happened, because Michael Jordan is black and he's one of the most famous players ever in the world. So I don't want to hear this thing that, oh, because she's white, this is why she's getting attention. No, it has nothing to do with that. She just has to be very good at her position and her play.
She's very skillful.
I mean, no one was fucking bitching about Larry Bird, and he was fucking white as you can get. I mean, fuck me, dude. Like, the dude's white.
Well, the other thing I think too, because Caitlin Clark is very skillful. Like, she plays basketball, not flashy, but calculated. You know what I mean? She's not like doing all the crazy, stuff, and she's just very interesting to watch, because you can tell it's very natural to her. Like, I think that hurts her too, because she's not this flashy person. She doesn't have millions of followers. She's not putting up like, oh, look at me out on a boat, and like people they want
the Angel Reese who plays the villain and is trash talking all the time, and
she's just like seems like a quiet
girl. Caitlin
honestly
talks trash on the court, but it's not as much as some of the others. But and then finally, my final point in this is it comes to like Hollywood and acting. So like, I'm always calling back to the movie The Hustler, where you had Kristen Bale, Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence, and Rachel McAdams.
The Hustler, you mean
The Hustle or something like
American
that.
Hustle?
Yes, thank you. And so, Rachel was complaining that she wasn't being paid as much as the others. And so I made the argument at the time, well, one, you're not as big as the name as the other ones that are on the bill. Like, you're just not. Two, you could have stepped away and said, that's not enough. I'm not going to do it. But she admitted, I really wanted the part. And that's the other fact, is she could have stepped away and they would have just found somebody else. There's always someone there lined up to take your place.
That's any job. Any job. You can say,
So
I know
whenever
my worth.
whenever I see these women out there in the acting world and they're like, yeah, I'm not taking my top off, but there's gonna be about 20 women, would-be actresses, that want to do it and they don't care. They're gonna get up there because they'll take that money. That may not be what you want, but it's 10 times better than what they have.
And I think that it can be said for any job. A lot of times you accept something because even if you think it is less than what you're worth, you accept it because you're like, all right, I really want this. And the opportunity, it's never, everybody knows, and it's never what you think it's going to be. So you don't always set yourself up in a good position, but you take what you can up front because you're never, I'm living it right now. You're never going to negotiate something a year down the road and it to be what it should be. So you see what is proposed in front of you. And I was actually lucky because I had 2 other people. We all left together and were applying at the same place together. So we were all comparing notes. And I know the one guy was actually really shocked that I was making significant, like $11 more than him. And I was like, but hey, you got to listen to me. You're making more than you were at the old place. 2, I was severely criminally underpaid at the old place. After years of we just can't get raises this year, whatever. And if you look at my experience compared to yours, you did 3 jobs out to sea. And I did 6.5 years of it out to sea. It's a big difference. Plus I had a degree. Plus in addition to that, I had more experience in my industry that didn't have to do with sailing. I said, so I deserve this. You're not making me feel bad for earning this. I won. Well, turns out it was to my detriment because I say I deserve it, but I didn't believe in myself that I deserve it because I did not fight for what I really should have gotten. I was just happy because I thought I got something good, but I let people take advantage of me. And that's what ends up happening to women a lot.
All right,
and then if you don't, you're bad, you're nasty, you're looked at as hostile, you're looked at as uncooperative. But I've seen men who do it all the time and they're looked at as oh man, he's a ball breaker. He is, he non-negotiations. He stands for what he believes in.
Well, I have 1 or 2 videos to go through. They're not super long,
Okay.
but the first one is talking about, is the pay gap personal? So I think it looks like a news crew, are doing this, but I don't know exactly who they are.
We all know women earn less than men, and we hear many explanations for it. It's because women work part-time, they take career breaks to bring up their family, they choose to work in low-paid professions. But guess what? Turns out what's driving the gender pay gap is not what you might think, dude.
The myth. The gender pay gap exists because women take lower paid jobs. While more men are lawyers and bankers, more women are nurses, carers, teachers.
Yeah, so to a certain extent, we've debunked the myth.
That's Elise Dwyer from not-for-profit economic research group E61 Institute. Using tax data, they did a little digging into the gap between men and women's wages. In Australia, the median gender pay gap is 19%, or in dollar terms, a female worker is paid nearly $18,500 less per year.
We find that women working in lower paying occupations accounts for about 20% of the total gender wage gap.
The remaining 80%.
But is that the same jobs or is that just different jobs?
That's different jobs. That's what they're saying. So that small portion is what they're saying, that the pay gap exists for 20% of the time because there are men who are lawyers, bankers, and women are taking lower
now
pay jobs.
Is the argument they're making is that more women should be lawyers? Is that what they're trying to say here? Or is it just somehow they're forced into not doing that? Is it a choice?
Well, they said it at the beginning. Women make choices more for their family.
But they said that was a myth, right?
Well, that's what they're showing here. That's only 20% of the time that women take lower jobs because they're trying to raise a family. It exists. We all know it exists. We see it every day. There might be, I know women who are raising kids and they're like, all right, this job, I'm a teacher. I have to get to school by 8. I'm done.
Teachers are underpaid anyway.
Well, but I mean, they have the whole all of the same days off because their kids are in school too. So then they have the same vacation. So it's easier for them to raise their kids. They have, benefits and they have a nice stable salary, plus the time off in the summer to be with their kids. And yes, they don't get paid in the summer. Some teachers, what they do is they flex their pay so that they do get their wages over the summer, but it's the same amount. So if you're making, $50,000, $60,000 for the year, if you choose not to flex your pay, your last paycheck is the end of the school year. But if you do flex your pay, you still get paid, but you get paid less throughout the year, but you'll still get a paycheck over the summer. Not all schools will do that for you. So what she's saying, excuse me, it does exist. Women are taking lower paying jobs, but that's 20% of the time.
Okay.
Percent of the gender pay gap. That's driven by men being paid more than women with the same occupation.
I don't understand why, but it is what it is, yeah. Pretty sad, yeah, pretty upset.
I think it may exist, but to what extent, I'm not sure.
The research found that when comparing men and women of the same age, same qualifications, same marital status, same number of children working in the same job, women earn 15% less per hour than a man.
So when we talk about sample sizes in this research, we're sampling nearly everyone in the entire Australian population.
Just jumping in here to say that this story is technically 81% complete, so by rights, I should stop working right now. But I shall persist. Which brings us to myth number 2. Women work part-time or switch jobs. Because it turns out the main factor driving the pay divide is personal. Being married with kids having a far greater impact on the wages of a woman than the wages of a man in the same job.
Men, relative to women, do earn more after the birth of their first child. This is a finding we see both in Australia and also abroad as well.
So if women are paid less just because they're...
And now I'm curious about the percentages, because one thing that we've been hearing a lot is that more women now today, modern women, are kind of abandoning the family idea. They're going after careers instead of families per se. So unless, obviously the conservative women are doing more of this stuff, but I'm just wondering how much of a percentage of these women that are married and trying to have
here,
kids.
what they're saying is these are women who are in the same position, same
I know
age,
that, but
same everything. And what they're trying to say here is they used to use the excuse that women are, caring for children, but they use the whole sample of all the tax data. And these are women who are technically the same on paper as these men. And it looks like they're making 15% less.
But is that because they have to take time off, or?
Well, that's an interesting caveat, because when you accept a job, you're given benefits, PTO. So anyone who abuses PTO should be, dealt with based on the company policy. So should a woman who is using PTO for personal reasons, be it children or whatever, and not abusing it and not going over their allotted amount, be punished because you've got someone else who uses zero PTO? It doesn't pay to use zero PTO. I'm trust me, I'm living proof of this. There is someone, a man, again, someone who is underqualified for his job where I am, and I basically have to tell him how to do his job on a daily basis. And I think he's taken 4 vacations in the last year. Take your vacation.
Women, what hope is there of closing the gap?
It's just feel like it's been the thing forever.
A lot of women wouldn't be aware of it. To my knowledge, I haven't experienced it.
I was probably getting paid $10,000 less.
Well, Gemma Lloyd founded Work 180, a company that pre-screens employers for women. Gemma, what inspired you to do this?
I worked for close to 10 years in the tech sector, and the company I was in before starting Work 180 was a boys' club. I found out from another employee that my colleague, a male who was in the exact same role as I was getting paid about $40,000 a year more than me. Now, this combined with a bunch of other incidents lit a fire in my belly, and I wanted...
Okay, but she needs to explain was how long was he there? Did you come in at the same time?
I think that's what she's.
I mean, I'm hoping that's what she's implying, but like, this is why I find some of this stuff deceptive, because this is the nuance I'm talking about. Like,
yes, I understand that too. Yes, it is a nuance. If somebody doesn't have is the same amount of experience, but 40,000 is quite a gap.
I mean, look, you and I are going to butt heads a little bit here because I go in as a driver. I can have experience all day long. I go to a job, and then all of a sudden they hire new people and they've changed the pay gap. So now they're making as much as I did, and they just started. So you could call that unfair. But sometimes that's just the way shit works. I have to be careful with some of these people, how they try to apply this, because she's saying, well, yeah, it lit me a fire in my belly, but you didn't explain whether or not this dude's been there for 10 years over you or not. I don't know. I hope she goes into that.
Wanted to create a place where women could go and find employers that genuinely wanted them there, and look at these policies around parental leave, pay equity, and flexible working.
Wow. Gemma, when that realisation sets in, when you find out that news that you're being paid considerably less than your male colleague, I mean, I'd do something useful like kick a bin, but what does that feel like to you?
It really shook my confidence. I questioned my value and my self-worth. I had an array of emotions from sadness to anger. But as time passed, what I began to realise is that I wasn't the problem. I was in a misogynistic environment.
So then how does your employer justify it?
Well, when you work in a company like that, you don't bother to ask because you know what the response is going to be and they're not going to take it seriously. You know, obviously I left that organisation, and I encourage other women who are in similar positions to, if they can, leave.
Gemma, more than 1 million women use your platform. You hear lots of stories from them experiencing this. What's the worst example, though, that you've come across?
The worst I've seen has been just over $60,000 a year from a woman in a leadership position. The average we tend to see, because we do get a lot of inquiries, is about 10 to 15K difference.
Wow. Usually in this situation, the problem is it's systemic. It's just always been there. So when you create a platform like this to try to implement change, how do you find men react to it?
I like to think that most men appreciate what we do because equality means they can have better paid parental leave and flex, etc. But the reality is, when we put a post out about the gender pay gap on social media, we get trolled with a lot of very offensive comments, 99% of which are from men.
Wow. Gemma, Luxembourg has recently reported it's actually eliminated the gender pay gap. Women are now out-earning men, so there is hope that change is possible. Gemma, what do we need to do to close that pay gap?
We need to destigmatise men being able to take paid parental leave and flexible working and take up more of that fair share of the domestic load. In addition to that, employers need to make sure they have transparent and robust recruitment and promotional processes so that they can see that all people are being assessed fairly.
Well, Gemma, here's hoping with your help we can do better.
It's almost over anyway.
Okay, go ahead.
No, it's just about done.
Okay, so what ends up happening to women too, when they're saying they're taking like apples to apples, oranges to oranges, a lot of times what happens to women is kind of what happens to me. They take you and they hire you for something and they use you for something else. Like, I would kill to do what my real job title is, but that's not what I do every day. So then women get hurt because they're doing something that's not like their real job title. And then they see idiots who are, you know, in management who don't know what they're doing, rightfully knowing that they're out earning them, you know, by 40, 50,000 a year. It is systemic to a point, but it's also, I think, what I've learned from myself, and I've heard from other women and people have said this, like, a lot of times, you know, you take on these things hoping it's going to make your career better, but it doesn't make your career better. It makes somebody else's career better. And because they can't come back to you and say, well, you've been doing the job of X, even though your job title is Y. It doesn't matter. Your job title is Y, so you're never going to get that credit for doing job X. And it's the truth, because That's why I've been fighting for this for over a year, and nothing has changed. Job title hasn't changed. Pay hasn't changed. Nothing has changed. And I think that happens a lot of times too, where
Has it happened just to you or everyone else?
It happens to a lot of women.
No, does it happen to men on your job too?
No, it doesn't happen to
None
men.
of them.
No.
So those guys that quit, they're not getting underpaid?
No. They're getting paid what they're supposed to be paid. Because they're lower than me. I was a D. So I like the level. I had more experience. I had more time in.
Yeah, and that's my only problem with that chick is I don't know the difference between her and the male counterpart, which I wish she would have told us.
And that's the thing too. So I am a higher technician level, right, than the other people. What they're doing to the other female who is a tech D as well with 13 years experience. So I've got like 8 years, 7.5, 8 years experience. She has 13 years experience. She's doing more like electrical engineering. So she's not even doing technician work either. And do you think they're paying her what an engineer makes? They want her to program circuit cards. They want her to do
Well, the job that you're at now, it's in chaos. So
I know.
there's a lot going on
But you
there.
have to think about, this is not a unique situation. There are shit shows everywhere. And there's an end goal to get the job done. So it's whoever puts themselves as the most vulnerable to do, like, you're like, okay, I'll do it because we need somebody to do it. So these men that I work with, they are doing their job under their title. And yes, I do get paid more than them because I'm a higher technician level. But I'm not by title, I'm not the operations project manager, even though I'm acting like it, which is a complete different title with different benefits and different pay.
Did you think when you worked for the other job that you deserved to be paid as much as the other guys?
Yes.
Even with less experience?
I had more experience than some of them. People were coming in making more money than me.
The stuff on the ship.
Yes. G was making more money. Oh, sorry, I used his name. He came in making more money. He made more money than me, and he had 3 jobs. He did 3 sales.
Now, did they raise the money at that point? Like kind of like with Amazon?
I have no idea. But I was the lowest paid person in that department. And it could be, because like I said, I was a lateral move from a different department to this department. Also shows how sad it is when I was negotiating, hundreds of thousands of dollars of contracts, how low I was being paid. And I get put into this, new position. Again, I'm brand new, so I don't negotiate and fight for like this huge bump or anything. I just accept it. And I got glowing reviews every year. But let me tell you something. You know how it is. The minute somebody opens their mouth about me, instead of my boss going to bat and saying, I trained her, I know she knows better, he comes to me and says, oh, I hear that you're really not doing so. You're not confident. Or so it's sometimes it's like not mean.
It's belittling.
Well, it's the misogyny isn't like in your face, but like it just happens. Like
indirectly.
It's indirect. Like I would be, as a person, if I knew I trained somebody and I just worked with somebody and I had no problem and this person has never had a bad review in their life, and then one dickhead says something just because he and I didn't really get along, and pinpoints like some stupid tiny trivial thing that I did and turns it into a big deal, and then my manager comes and says, well, we could probably use some more training. And I'm sitting there thinking, you trained me from day one. Like, do you think you're a bad trainer? That your training was not good enough for me?
Well, and the worst thing about that, because it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, is if you had confronted your boss first about that, what happened there, he would have said you're just a complainer.
And the guys, like, I've never heard so many men complain and tattletale on each other in my life. Worse than women. All they did while they were out there, if somebody did something, if somebody sneezed the wrong way, they'd come back and cry to the bosses. I am not making trouble. I want as many opportunities as possible, because some of these guys would go to the point where they're like, I'm not working with him, and him. And I'm like, I'm not making those kind of barriers for myself, because I want to be able to go out. I'll work with anybody. I don't give a shit. But some of these guys were like that. And, you know, when I had legitimate concerns, it was still kind of brushed off. And it wasn't even like with me, but there were sexual harassment problems on one of the ships. And it took one of the cadets from maritime school, something happening with her, before they took it seriously. They actually put the female cadets are put in a separate part of the ship, and they put cameras outside of their doors. And it had to come to that before they did something like serious about it. Now, I'm not saying I ever was sexually harassed, but I saw it. It had been reported on, and all people did was not take it seriously and kind of made jokes about it. I'm like, that's not the attitude to have, but fine, whatever. So it's hard for me, because I really have felt this pinch, and I know what an exceptional like resume I have and the amount of experience that I have, and it still seems to happen to me. And I told you, part of it is me. Part of it is me that, let me tell you, the dude that is the manager where I work, who does not deserve the job, who is getting bonuses and I'm not, and I'm putting in even more hours and working even harder, and he does not give a fuck. He leaves. He gets there later than everyone, and he leaves earlier than everyone. He drops his son off to school and picks his son up, and he takes all of his PTO, and he does not care. And guess what? He still has a job, and he's probably a lot less anxious and less depressed than I am, because he just doesn't care.
All right, well, we got another video here, and this one is the gender pay gap a myth, by Richard Reeves. So let's see.
Let's find out.
Apparently he does try to approach it from both sides. So,
well, I mean, I will say this to anyone, if you're really looking at it on paper, yes, the gap doesn't really exist, especially nowadays. These companies, like I said, my company was very formulaic when they're like, okay, you are now a technician D, and these guys are technician C's because they have less experience than you.
My only issue is like it exists, but like most things like sexism and racism, I hate that when it like that girl from the last video, she may very well be right. They could have came in at the same time. He could have argued for a higher pay and got it.
Well, that's usually what happened. Men are more
But
advocates for themselves.
She doesn't give me that detail that I need, because those are the things that oftentimes get left out. She's like saying, oh, I've done all this research, I'm changing things.
But you heard at the beginning when they were saying 20%.
Right.
They were using raw
but she
statistical
didn't explain
data.
her situation.
So in that raw statistical data, they saw that, yes, the pay gap existed 20% of the time because women are taking lower paying jobs, and 80% of the time they had really no explanation.
But see, that'd be considered self-inflicted. Like, you're not, a lot of people do this, and even some women, they'll go into high paying jobs and they will demand that they get paid X, Y, and Z. So never assume they're going to pay you what you want. Like I tell you all the time, like even when we're talking about selling a house, like we're going to sell high and then work our way down if that's what's necessary.
You got to start high.
So
you can't.
And like, if you're going to go and try to get a different job, well, we know there's a range in that. I'm like, go as high as you can and then let them work your way down. Because, that's just reality there. Because if you just let them decide it for you, they're going to be like, all right, 50 grand, you can do this job. And you'd be like, kick rocks.
And I think with me, the issue I'm having so much with my current position is I'm not doing my job. And, you heard me because I was working home part of the day on Friday. I take a lot of Teams calls, and he was listening to me talking to another guy. And he's like, I'm calling you because no one else will help me.
Yep. All right, let's check out this other video, see what he's got to say.
The gender pay gap is, simply put, the gap in the pay levels of the median man and the median woman. We've seen huge progress in closing the gender pay gap from 64 cents on the dollar a few decades ago to 82 cents on the dollar now. So that obviously represents huge progress by women in the labor market. It's obvious when we think about it for a moment that that doesn't mean all women earn less than all men. And when we look quite hard at the picture, what we see is that 40% of women now earn more than the median man, which was only 13% in 1979. Imagine a world where the earnings of women and men looked exactly the same. It would be 50%. So we're not at 50% of women earning the same as the median man, but we're at 40%. And so what that means is there are a lot of women who are earning quite a lot more than a lot of men. And that's great news. What that means is that we're getting closer and closer
pause
to
here.
gender.
I'm going to do your devil's advocate. Are they comparing women in higher positions to men in lower positions? Because that's what it sounds like.
Well, that's a fair question. I mean, but then again, that's down to details. Like,
yeah, because if a woman lawyer is definitely going to make more than a driver, or
but
me,
you make more than
I make
me.
more than you,
Way more than me.
significantly more than you.
Yeah.
So like, we're in two totally different jobs, and that's why. So is he saying?
But see, I don't know. Also, like, if I were like, see, I don't have details of my fellow employees' pay. Like, I don't know what they're making. So if a girl gets hired tomorrow, how do I know she's not getting paid $5 more than I do?
You can ask. You got to be that's another thing that I do not.
Well, see, that's very invasive. Like, you.
I know, but you can.
But you don't really want to do that because
we are very open about it where we work.
See, and that's where you get into trouble.
No, see, that is a problem. If you are too afraid to talk about what you earn with your employee coworkers, then that is the boss and that is the company having power over you. It should be transparent. And my company has a lot of faults, but they try to be very transparent about the types of, like, hourly employees versus salaried employees have different benefits. They're very spelled out differently, how you earn PTO, how your PTO works, how your holiday pay works, et cetera, et cetera. If I were to go on to my company's website and I wanted a level 5 person who is in purchasing or a level 5 person who is in planning, or if you want to look at the difference between a Tech D and a Tech C salary, they give you exactly what.
Okay, you wanted to play devil's advocate though, but how do you address his stance about the change in pay from 79 till now? That's a huge jump.
Number one, inflation. Honestly, think about it.
So
more women are in the workforce, more women are going to college, more women are taking on careers. So that's why more women are earning more money. But that's also
that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. But that's also, again, what statistic is he saying? Because is he saying it's women in general just are making more than men by not comparing jobs? Or are you just saying like women doing the same jobs as men are still making 82
well, I
cents
think he
to
mentioned
the dollar?
labor, so I don't know if that's specifically
That's
just
the other
that.
question. If you're just making a bold statement saying women now have closed the
See, I love how she challenges this guy and I challenge the girl. That sucks for you, man.
No, I honestly, well, she was saying it was apples to apples with the other one, like, because they were saying they pulled it from the tax data.
Well, but that's her research. That wasn't reference to her own position. That's what got her started to do that other stuff.
And that was enough for her to get started, but like that's what she was doing.
But she left out that key information. Like again,
he's leaving out key information. Are we just saying women as a whole, regardless of what job they're doing, are now the gap?
Well, let's see what else he has to say, because like he's just getting started. So
equality, even if we haven't got there yet in terms of earnings. The question then becomes, why is the gap there? Why was it there before? Why is it there now? And there are a number of things that could be causing the gender pay gap. And the one that's most commonly cited is discrimination, is that women are paid less for doing the same work as men. And that clearly used to be a relatively large factor in the past. It's one of the reasons why we have equal pay legislation, to make that illegal for employers to engage in. But as women have progressed, that's become less and less part of the story. A much bigger part of the story has become two really big factors. One, that women are tending to be in occupations that are lower paid. So there's differences in occupation, which we have to understand. But the really big one is differences in child rearing and childcare. So what happens with the discussions about the gender pay gap is, I think, quite a lot of misunderstanding. You'll get people.
Why is a woman who is childless?
Well, that actually is a good point, because I was just thinking about that. Like, so my belief, one of your biggest weaknesses is that you're just too nice half the time.
But you should see me. I'm not really nice at work.
No, well, not now, but you go into a job, you're very bubbly, friendly, even interviews, whatever. You have one of your best friends is somebody you used to work with. So,
and I'm on
and that at times,
but
that has gotten you in trouble at times, because you befriend somebody and then you go out, like, you do more things with your coworkers than I ever do with mine. I don't ever do that because I'm always worried about that. I'm always worried about the backstabbing, I'm not your friend, I'm your boss, or I'm your coworker. So I always worry about that.
All the people like that we went out with, that one, none of them are bosses.
No, but
we're all in the same playing
but they're
field.
all competing for the same stuff.
2 of that group are gone. They quit.
I'm just saying in general.
A third one is quitting. He's just waiting for his start date.
But Teresa, like, you wanted to be her buddy.
I tried.
Yeah, and so, but that's not the way to go about things. And I think that oftentimes gets you into positions where you just start feeling bad because you were, upset about that one, because even though you knew you had to leave because it wasn't a good situation, it broke your heart. So, like, I think at times you're just too nice. And when it comes to you personally,
I can give you another example where I was very detached from the job that I took when I was taking care of my mother. I was very detached to that. What did I do? I just worked. I did not socialize. I did not talk to anyone. Nothing. Still. So I think what happens to women happens to me a lot. You get hired for one position, they give you that title, but you're not doing that work. You're doing someone else's work because they either can't fill another position or someone else is lacking. But you never get the credit for it because your title is something completely different. So then that hurts you, and that's going to hurt your pay because, like, I'm doing the work of something that is completely not my title. It's actually a little unethical because I'm a different pay scale.
You're looking elsewhere. So, like, obviously, I'm trying to put your current job aside because it's not the norm. It really isn't. Like,
no, it really is the norm. It's happening to women all the time doing things like that.
Not every job is designed like this. Not every company. This is Subcom was totally fine as a structure.
I had to.
The only thing you ran into a problem there was, and you caught it, was they were outsourcing it and paying them more because that apparently was cheaper for them to do that than to.
Then explain how someone with 6 months experience became my supervisor because I trained him.
But that's when you were in purchasing. I'm talking about when you were on the boat.
I'm talking.
But even then, you still had structure. It was just you got fucked over by a woman.
And in order to even leave that department, they were saying that I was not allowed to switch departments because I was an essential person to the department.
I remember that because it took them 3 people to fucking
and
fill
I
your
had
job.
to go to HR.
Yeah.
So
I saw shit like that at Corporate Express. So women aren't the only ones that fucking deal with this.
I know. I'm just saying.
This is why I'm trying to get through to you because it's all about like, oh yeah, women, but men fucking put up with a lot of bullshit. A lot of bullshit.
I'd like to see your
particularly on the right saying it's a myth. Once you control for education and occupation and time spent raising kids, the gap almost disappears. It goes down to say 3 percentage points, 4 percentage points, and that's true. But then the question is, well, why do we have that occupational segregation? Why are the women the ones taking the time out of the labor market to raise the kids? Maybe that's where the structural inequality is now. So it's not a myth.
Well, kudos to the girl in the other video because she was saying it should split and that men should be doing some of that load for home.
Well, and she made a really good point. She's like, it's good for men too, because if we are finding these companies that have more equitable like parental leave, it's good for men too. Like men, this is the thing that kills me about my company, because they're like I said, they're very transparent about your pay scale. Anybody could go in and look it up right now. I can see what somebody else's pay scale is, because they put it right there in front of you. But they also are very fair with their if
Is it pay scale by position, or is it each person's name listed?
it's by position. So
That's what
it'll
I
say
thought,
like if you're a technician D,
so they have a range.
they'll have a range from like 65 to 95 or 75 to
That makes sense.
whatever. So it'll show you like you top out here. And then if you go to technician D, you're like this to this. So if you're an engineer and you're level 5 engineer, you go this to this. So it's very clear cut of what your pay scale is. But on the flip side, like the other lady was saying in the other video, how seeking out these companies that have these like parental leave and this permissive leave and whatever. My company, if you are salaried, has a much more generous benefits package for things like that. So if I am not salaried, but I do the work of a program manager, a project manager, and these type of benefits are parental leave for men, parental leave for women. For us lowlies, we just have to earn our PTO and accrue it as much as possible, and that's whatever. But what I kind of flip on that too, because like if I have to earn my PTO, but I'm actually working overtime, don't you think I would accrue more hours because I'm working more hours? And they told me no. And I'm like, okay, well then I'll just pull back on the overtime too. So fuck off. So it is good that woman said that, like, it will benefit men to look at these things. Cause like if you are a father and you're like, shit, my wife, she's going to be out for 3 months because she just had a baby. Be nice for me to be home at least for the first couple of weeks to give her a little help, because she's still going to be healing. And
either that or like even once she's healing and she wants to go back to work, you could start alternating, like every 2 weeks a guy will take off time and go stay home.
That's an interesting point, because that actually happened with Court and Keith. Remember, this is years ago too, before they even had like a lot of these places had these types of parental leave. But she had to have an emergency C-section, so her baby was put into the NICU for a long time. So she allowed herself to heal and then went back to work and wanted to take her parental time when the baby was coming home. The baby couldn't come home right away. And he's a great, strong boy now. So everything, happy ending around. But she then took her parental leave once the baby came home. And then her husband took his parental leave after her parental leave ended, so that they could, because he was, he was a NICU baby. He needed a little bit of extra help, so that you had a parent basically the first full year the baby was home there with them. So those are the type of things that I hope that parents look for or fight for, because these companies, if they start seeing a pattern of like, oh, well, I'm leaving because you don't have fair time off, you don't have good work-life balance, and then they modify their benefits and say, okay, well, we're going to give you this type of leave. And this is kind of what happened at my current company. We're going to give you this leave. It's called permissive leave. Not for me, but for, salaried people, where, you have to work, like you can kind of flex your hours. And if you are going to go to little Johnny's Little League game, you can do that, but you can make it up another day or whatever. And it just needs to be approved by your manager, kind of thing. So I'm hoping that people are starting to see this as dads and moms. And, sometimes too, this is another thing. I didn't even think about this with the last job too. A lot of companies are offering, and I'm wondering if this is like pure raw data. And I know it was for the last one, because they said they were looking at tax records, but a lot of companies now, they call it a total compensation package, which means they take your salary and then what they consider the value of your benefits are and lump it together. and say this is what you are earning. So I'm wondering if they're looking at that, or if they're just strictly, I know the last one was because they said it was tax data, but are they looking at benefits plus your salary or your total compensation package? So that's another thing. That's very, I just thought of that. So,
yeah, I was just thinking myself, like, you know, maybe not so much from the pay gap itself, but my last DSP, like, I was supposed to be promoted and
I know.
got skipped over, whether it's by sexism or racism. I can't prove it, but the
and
impression I got.
It was very sudden too, because you were training, right?
And then I got COVID.
And then we both got COVID. Now I still worked from home with COVID. He cannot deliver packages and be sick.
Yeah.
So he was out, no work, did not have paid time off, just didn't get paid for a week. He comes back to work and the whole idea of being promoted just left.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's coincidence. You know, he was out. Maybe they're like, oh, well, he's out and we really need to promote someone now. So we'll just.
Nah, they didn't really need to promote people. Not that rush. But anyway,
like, let's get back to this,
like,
dude.
yeah, just shit happens.
It's math. It's still there. But it's also not true, as many perhaps on the other side will claim, that it's evidence of purposeful discrimination. That's really not the main driver of it anymore, even though that's a popular explanation. You hear the gap and think, oh, there you go, there must be discrimination. But it's not really employer discrimination driving it now. It is these different patterns of work. So if we look at the earnings trajectories of men and women until they have children, they look very similar now. There's almost no difference. But then once they have children, women's earnings significantly decline relative to men. For women, having a child is the...
What if I don't have kids? That's what I want to understand.
Well,
like,
okay,
I don't have kids.
That's a fair question. That goes back to my original point about when you listen to the way people talk today, the media, whatever, the modern woman is kind of skipping the whole like child rearing thing. Like there are conservative women out there still doing the trad wife thing, but there's many women through colleges and everything else that want careers like there. And so what is the stats
Sarah
on that?
Sarah has a kid. She makes more than me and you combined and her husband.
Yeah, but she's in a different market. She's like in the media, right?
No.
Sarah.
Yeah.
She was working for CNN.
She hasn't worked there for 8 years.
Well, who's she working? Or what is she doing?
I don't even know what her job is, but she's the vice president of something.
Well, vice president. There you go.
So, but that's the thing. She did that while she was a mother. Her daughter is only 7.
Okay, but she went to college and did all these things, so she was driving for something.
Yes, but
and Nick's like in healthcare, right?
Not
anymore.
He works for the
I don't want to keep giving out names, but
yeah,
there's no last names.
The federal prison.
Like, okay.
And he helps with reforming people, like with getting them back on the streets and stuff. But that little graph he's showing, like women are earning less than men after like the birth of she's earning more after the birth of her kid, and more than her husband after the birth of her kid. So these are I mean I know these are just like personal experiences, but they always like to go back to, you have kids, you're going to earn less. Well, I don't have kids. I feel like I was put in a position I've earned less.
How long was she out for a kid? Do you remember?
Standard. I think it's like 12 weeks.
Did she lose money during that time or?
No, because their benefits, well.
So it could be just by company basis too. Like, because whatever, like she's had some pretty decent jobs, like in terms of stability, so maybe that's part of like the packages or whatever, maybe better than what we're used to in our own experience in fields.
But again,
she might be just an outlier to some of that.
I just want them to take kids out of the equation. Like I have no children. I don't have children. There should be no reason that I'm getting dicked over except for me. I am my own problem. Because
well, maybe you're like Jennifer Aniston, like because you are married, but you have no kids, so they can't take you seriously.
I guess they can't
economic
take me
equivalent of being
seriously
hit by a meteorite. Whereas for men, their earnings continue to go up. There are 2 big reasons why having kids has this big effect on women's earnings and employment. Number one is the simple one, that they take more time out of the labor market to look after kids, especially when they're young. So most women with kids who aren't ready to go to school yet, so they're in the first 4 or 5 years of life, are either working part-time or not working. That's not true for the fathers. But almost to rub salt in the wounds, the very age at which most women are taking that time out of the labor market or going part-time, in one way or another slowing down or reducing their time in the labor market, turns out to be years that are really critical for career development, especially in certain careers. Just at the point where your career is starting to take off, you're taking on seniority, you're getting promoted into management roles and so on, that's when you take this hit. And so what that means is the impact of the time you take out of the labor market isn't just that time, it's the long run effect it's had on your career progression. So there is this double hit that predominantly women face.
But what if you don't
in terms
take
of
any
having
time
kids.
off? What if you don't have kids? I need to understand, like, what if you don't have kids?
Well, they need to break it down too, because there are men these days that will be the ones like let's say you and I, you make the bread.
You know you would have been stuck with the kid.
Right. So that's not really been mentioned in the equation. I know that happens. So like I'm kind of curious, like both of them aren't really breaking down things. I suppose we'd have to go visit their sites and their data to kind of like see that, but
given the main reason for the gender pay gap is this parenting gap, the amount of time that women versus men are putting into raising kids, that doesn't mean it's not a problem. It means it's a different kind of problem.
0% of my time.
And there are
into
various
raising-
things we should and can be doing to address it. Number one
Well, we do
is
spend a lot
to
on
reduce
cats.
just how big an impact
And I
taking
also
time out of the
think,
labor
you
market
can
or
pause
working
this real
part-time.
fast. Like, I think another point that he's not like outright saying is, okay, both parents work. Who's taken off when little Jimmy is sick?
Right.
Mom. Not dad, mom.
Usually.
Who is, doing XYZ. I have been.
The other thing I'd be curious about, just to cut you off for a minute, like I like to see the stats with COVID. Like it affected a lot of people, but like I'm just curious how it also affected men and women pay wise.
Yeah, because everybody had to work from home.
Yeah.
Well, most people, I was still going in, you were still going in, I was still sailing,
Yeah.
But most of your day-to-day people were all working home because they were told they had to work from home. You had to.
Schools were not letting
Schools were
kids
at
be in there.
home. So I would wonder now if we see what is you're able to do from home. How are you going to, mingle? Because that was another thing that people would say is especially that other girl's, her point was, oh, it's a boys club. And we did. So yes, very, very recent past. Yes. Deals were done on the golf course. Deals were done in bars. Women were excluded a lot, even if they were in the same team, because that's just how it was. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that it was easy to exclude women because of the social norms. But COVID, bring that in. There are no more golf games because it's all closed. There are no more we're going to go have a beer and
Yeah, most of those restaurants and stuff are closed down, at least limited
so
to capacities.
That's an interesting thing too. But I know everybody likes to focus on women being mothers, but I'm not a mother. I'm interested in this for very personal and it's hurtful almost, because you're telling me if I had kids, that would be an excuse for me having my problems in my career, but I don't have children. So you're telling me I'm my own problem. And yes, I admit I know what I've not been very good at putting up boundaries and sticking to my guns, and that is my problem. But this is boiling everything down to, and the other one to a point, it's the pay gap is because you have kids and because it's a critical time of your.
Yeah, at least with the other chick, she had somewhat of a solution by saying they should at least split it, balance between men and women.
Well, that goes back to why you shouldn't feel afraid to speak about your wages with other people, even if it does kind of hurt you because you're crap, I make less. You're taking the power away from the people who are trying to make you guys hate each other, you know? But this whole thing, the only information that you are giving me is you suck. You deserve your pay gap. You deserve to not get promoted because you suck, not because, oh, you have kids. Like, everything that he's trying to say is the children, the child rearing, and I have no children.
Well, let's see if he expands on it all.
Has on your career. So much more generous paid leave, for example. The US is about the only country of advanced economies to not have federal paid leave. The second thing is we can redesign career ladders such that there isn't such a big impact as people just getting to that point where they're going to be promoted. So we have to redesign careers so that they are more compatible with flexibility. The other really big thing we have to do is both to encourage and enable fathers to do more of the work on the home front. It may well be true that going forward, women will still do more of the care in the very early years. I do think there's some evidence that that is a preference that women have, but that doesn't mean that they do it all the way through. There's a huge role for fathers all the way through parenting, including in adolescence. I sometimes feel like the discussion about parenting assumes that kids are grown up at the age of 5, and it's just about the early years. And having raised 3 boys to adulthood, I tell you, it's not a few years. It goes on and on and on for decades. And so finding a way for mums and dads to share more equally the tasks around parenting over that longer time frame is hugely important. And that's why if we do have leave policies, they should be available to men equally as to women, and they should be available at any time in a child's life and not just in the early years, because parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think we can ask fathers to do much more without necessarily saying they have to do it right at the beginning. The good news about the gender pay gap is that it has been shrinking over the last few decades. We have seen women really making good progress relative to men. The bad news is that we're now at a point where some of the structural obstacles to continued progress have become much clearer. And in particular, the different ways in which forming families and raising kids bears on women's economic progress compared to men. So we've gotten a long way, but we've also revealed now some really deep problems, which are about the very ways in which work and family go together, or in some cases, frankly, don't go together very well, and how that is mostly affecting women. So that means that to make more progress, we're going to have to work a lot harder.
Yeah. I mean, he has some decent points, but at the same time, both videos seem to be very limited and focused on the childbearing stuff and not so much on some of the other stuff that you brought up, just with like the boys club, the sexism, and taking on more stuff that like one of your counter co-workers isn't carrying his load of what his job description is. So it would be nice to see a little bit more in-depth diving into some of the stuff that's not related to children and stuff like that. Just, you know, non-traditional families in that sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, anyway, that might be something we'll revisit again soon. I think I'm going to do a quick video. You and I always love Amala Ekanobi. And she's going to be reacting to some insane race TikTok. So I have no idea what it's about, but we love her. She's a supposed libertarian, or at least down the middle, a little bit conservative chick that was once on the left, very heavily on the left, till she decided to leave that portion of it and said her eyes were awakened one day. And
well, she's half black, and she was really heavily into, like, she's even
Black Lives Matter.
She has like a Black Lives Matter or a Black Power tattoo, and when she would question things with the leaders of her groups, they would say, "You just have no idea how oppressed you are," and she's just like, "But you know,
I'm really not.
My mom and my grandma, they're white and they're not oppressing me. I'm really confused why you're just going so general." And anytime she would bring up any kind of questions, that was really all that they were giving her, is like, you're just super oppressed. And so she started like seeking things out herself and trying to get answers to questions, because she believes in a lot of different things. Like she's still
learning. She's young. Like, I've had some disagreements. I know Neko has to whenever we watch some of her stuff. She tends to be a little naive about certain things. We're older, so we've seen more, experienced more just in terms of life. So she does have some naive type stuff here and there, but for the most part, she's pretty smart. Very fun. I love watching her. She's really kind of like Neko, but bubbly kind of gal. So let's check it out. She always like laughing at some of these TikToks. I don't even have TikToks.
I don't either. Settle in. I've been feeling a little bit too optimistic about humanity these days. Things have been a little quiet on the internet as far as woke takes. So today we're going to change all of that by reacting to woke race TikToks, and we'll see how we do. Let's get into it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's video,
like
please like and subscribe. You know I'm subjecting myself to some of the insanity that exists on the internet, and today is no exception. We're going to be responding to woke race TikToks, and we're starting off on theme, kind of. We all know this is the week of 4th of July. We're in 4th of July weekend as we speak, and this one is about how you can celebrate the 4th of July and the 4th of July weekend as a white person, and what you should do for Black people. Let's watch.
It's 4th of July weekend. There's so much to celebrate, right? No, there really isn't, because the truth of the matter is the freedom and independence that the 4th of July holiday is supposed to represent never included all Americans or all people in America.
What about now? What about now? Are you still saying you're not included in the freedom that is enjoyed on the 4th of July?
Yeah, I love how people, not just Black people, but even white people, they get stuck in the past, man. It's like, yeah, we had some pretty shitty things happen in the past in America.
Let's move forward. We were just talking about this. Like,
you gotta fucking move forward, man. See the end game.
What
like,
we were just talking about with the discrimination and like, you know, we're seeing more women going to college and more women going to work and more women do. That's all good progress. It's not a bad thing. So what, do you wish you were still enslaved? Is that what you're saying? That's not the way. Yes, we get it. When they made the Declaration of Independence, it was meant for a bunch of white male slave owners. We get it. We know, but we're not that anymore. And
yeah, it's just like, I don't understand how people, like, you know, even that woman that's speaking right there has freedom. She may not feel like she has freedom, but she has freedom. She has the right to speak her voice. She's not having to drink from certain fountains anymore. She doesn't sit in the back of the bus. You know, the thing is,
forget about that was not that long ago.
Right. And it's like, don't live your life in such animosity and bitterness. Like, learn to move forward. Take what you do have, grow on that, and run with it. Like, there's so many great possibilities for so many people.
And there are so many countries where if you were, you can't even have TikTok, number one. Number two, if you would be that
half
bold,
the shit that people talk about with Israel and Hamas have not lived over there, and it shows. Like, go over there. I tell people all the time that complain about Americans, like, go, all right, take your ideals, go over there, help those people you want to help, and that's fine if you want to be the Samaritan. And see what happens. You may end up on a fucking milk carton somewhere. You'll disappear because
look,
you cannot say
Russia,
that shit.
China.
You stay here. Yeah, anywhere. That they don't accept that, dude. You will get fucked hard, and not in a good way.
And right now you're saying what you want to say on TikTok.
Yeah, and that's great.
Well, I mean,
but learn to appreciate that you were in a country that allows you to do that. Like, we have our problems, we know this, but it's not anything near what it once was.
And I go back to this because I hate that people just like, they're like, you were slave owners. I wasn't. My family wasn't. We didn't get here until
anybody ever brings that
early 1900s. My family was not here that long.
I told you my story. I mean, I ran into a Black woman that had my same last name, and you know what? Chances are, because I'm white, just by name, of course I was adopted, but by name, my ancestors probably owned slaves. But this Black woman did not treat me like an asshole. She was like so loving and so nice to me. She was excited. Yeah, she's like, dude, I've been dying to find other corporals in this whole like hemisphere.
And our last name is not common at all. It's
and most of the ones
hard.
that I find are all Black people. So like, I don't buy into that. I have no problem. Like she was the first one I met with my last name. I've been told in my own company that there's somebody else with the same name, but the reality is like, don't try to like catch me with that shit. Like, I'm just not going to hear it. Like, even if I did have ancestors that did some heinous acts like owning slaves, I'm not one of them. I'm not there. Like, I don't care if I share the name or not. The reality is I don't treat people like that. I treat you with the respect that you can treat me with. That's really what it comes down
And
to.
I really would hope that in an age where we have so many modern comforts and so much that is available to us.
I just can't imagine going through life right now and hating people and just being bitter about everything. Like,
I don't have anybody I hate.
I mean, sure, I can get on X and I see some shit that, dialogue and stuff that goes in there. I get caught up in some of that rant sometimes. But then once I'm done with it, dude, I step away from it. I don't even use it. I'm like, I don't think about it. I don't do anything with it.
I think that's what happens to some people. Is
They just can't let go.
They get kind of like in a
loop. Yeah.
That she is actively utilizing in this TikTok right now. I digress. Let's keep watching. I'm gonna have to pause this a million times. I can feel it now.
Right? So back in 1776, Black folks were still enslaved. So that's not anything to celebrate. So what I want to challenge you to do this weekend, and you should really do this every single day if you want to live an anti-racist lifestyle, but specifically for this weekend, instead of spending all your money on the red, white, and blue everything, ask yourself, where am I benefiting from the labor of Black people? And what am I giving to them in return? Whether it's free labor, unpaid labor, like social media.
We are benefiting not from.
Well, I can say she's benefiting pretty well because whatever she's at,
she has a beautiful house, right?
Yeah, that's way better than looks than mine. Now, granted, I wouldn't have all that shit up there because that's her own preference.
That's
of how
her own
she
style, yeah.
But
like,
the reality
she looks
is,
like she has a lovely house. She has a nice outfit. Her
she's
hair
probably
is
doing
very
well.
beautiful. Like, she looks like she gets her hair done and stuff. No, we're not really benefiting from the labor of Black people anymore. We're really benefiting from the child labor overseas right now, and this overseas labor. So I think I would like to challenge. Now, granted, it's 4th of July, so fuck the rest of the world. Woo, fireworks, America! But like,
and let's make it clear: it doesn't matter which president we have up in there the last 40 or so years. Like, it's not like I've somehow become rich off of any conservative president or even Democrat. It's which why you and I push consistently for more options. Like the two bozos we got going on right now, I don't like either one of them. And the thing is, it sucks that Americans can't sit there and force them to give us
extra parties.
Yes.
It's all financial. It's all financial.
It's bullshit.
Like,
and none of them care about us.
So,
he doesn't care about her, doesn't care about me, doesn't care about Amala, doesn't care about you.
I find it really interesting that she's like on the unpaid labor of Black people. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe they're thinking she's still going back in time. Like, I benefited from the unpaid labor of Black people. And I'm like,
I guarantee she's making more money than me.
Well, it's true. I am just saying, like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, she can sit there and because she's using race as that her like
her platform.
Yeah. And it's like it's just not accurate. Like it's again nuance. You got to have nuance to everything.
I think nowadays, like I get it. It's a the butterfly effect, as they say it. Like, this happened back then, and if this would have happened, and this would have happened, and this would have happened, and I get it. But we have seen so much change in humanity, even in our lives, and the way things have. And I hope that those changes are welcomed, and maybe the next generations are going to be even stronger together, and there's going to be more people like supporting each other with we should not forget about history. You should learn about history and understand it, because you don't want to make the same type of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to go, 10 years from now and we're like, okay, we're going to go back to separate water fountains, separate bathrooms, separate this. And
that's the other funny thing. Is like they're so busy tearing down statues and taking out history and classrooms. And it's like, okay, you want to do that? You want us to forget about the past, and you got to quit doing shit like this. Quit bringing it up. Because if you really want to move on and you really want to erase all this negative shit that supposedly reminds you of the bad stuff, then let's move on. Let's quit bringing it up every fucking time a cop has an interaction with a Black person, or In the case of this, you have the 4th of July, which celebrates Americans. Americans, you are American.
You're an American. I'm
So
American.
yeah, so just stop bringing it up. Quit making an excuse like, okay, we're going to take away all this shit, teach people about more Black history. Great. Then quit bringing it up as some sort of victim mentality that you have.
And I think it's great that we are getting more information that has been taken out of history books, like for Black history, because yes, history books, math books.
I mean, history for me,
books,
man, was always vague anyway. It wasn't like you learned some things, but it wasn't like it was always like, yeah, Black people were bad. Like they taught us enslavement was bad. They taught us that all the time. Slavery was bad. We fought to have that broken, So it's like, it was never quite in detail. You learned about, Rosa Parks and Frederick Douglass and stuff like that. But the reality is that it was never about like trying to deny Black history. It was just like, you only have so much time in a classroom, and they had to try to throw as much shit at you as they could.
But what I was trying to say about history textbooks, they are written by people, so they are not perfect textbooks. They're textbooks that people write based off of information that they are given, and this is the syllabus, so you need to include this. So it's good. More information is always fun. There are so many things I've learned about that I didn't even know about when I was in school. So please, yes, I want more Black history. I want more women's history. I love learning some weird little tidbit that I didn't even know about, even from around here. The things, because we have Johns Hopkins here, and they've been around for so long, and some of the research and some of the stuff about for African Americans, this guy who he never was able to go to medical school, but he was the chief intern and research assistant to I cannot remember his name, it's going to kill me. He was African American, and because he had so much time in with the university, they actually gave him an honorary doctorate. But because he never went to medical school, he was never actually allowed to operate. But his surgeon that he worked with and all the surgeons that he taught, he developed all these things. And this was a long time ago, like really long time ago, where it's like very surprising. So I love hearing stories about that. Somebody saw something in this guy who really wanted to be a doctor and got him into research.
Or whether it's inequitable paid labor. Where are you benefiting from labor from us? And what are you giving in return? Usually, if it's for social media, we give you specific directions on what to do after you consume our content. So do that today.
Do that today. If you're a white person and you're thinking about, I don't know, buying fireworks or those little poppets that you throw at the floor, or you want to buy a nice
disclaimer that says, "Oh, no white people watching my."
Well, she asked we're betting. I said we gave you freedom. That's what we gave you. She doesn't understand that you very well could still be enslaved today. Like it could have happened.
It could have gone sideways.
Right.
We could still be the North and South.
And I don't care if she wants to use Colin Kaepernick as like saying he's still enslaved by the NFL. So that's not enslavement. I'm sorry, it's not. You might call it unfair or whatever, but it's not enslavement.
United, the North states and the South states. I mean, like.
Yeah, your freedom is the greatest gift that white America can give you, and then Black people bled to help that along. So
I really would love people
to
study some sociology and study some anthropology. And Christ, I'm about to go. I don't know where all my books are. I can't wait until we move and I can actually have a library. Like I can't wait because I got books everywhere, and I have a really good sociology and anthropology textbook from that I love to read about. One thing that we need to realize as people is everybody is learning and borrowing from each other, which is important. Yeah. Without that lady doing her TikTok,
we are the biggest melting pot on the planet.
But like, I'm talking like going back in the day, back to like primitive humans, when people would interact and they weren't from like your area, they didn't go like, oh, you're culturally appropriating me. Somebody would go like, look, I know how to weave baskets and I'll teach you how to weave these baskets. And someone else would be like, yeah, I learned how to dry and salt fish so that we have
and that's the
fish through
thing
the
too, is
winter.
that, they always come back to America and like the slave period and stuff like that, and even Columbus and that stuff like that. And I'm like, you have to understand, slavery took place all over the world, and there were white people that were enslaved as well.
No, there's still slavery going on now, like
in Africa, in fact.
Africa, over in the Western.
Yeah, there's more
Eastern
nuance
Bloc,
to the
they call
entire
it.
story about America and around the world, and it's like these people that get on these kicks. Like, again, you have the freedom to say whatever you want. I'm fine with that, but you're being very naive and narrow-minded when you're not expanding outside the globe, because slavery didn't just happen in America. It wasn't just a white thing. It was like a lot of different cultures. Egypt had a lot of slaves, and they weren't white. So, like, let's not pretend that America is like the only one ever to have slavery of any sort. Like, it's ridiculous. And then you tend to ignore the fact that your own people sold you as slaves. So I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, but it's like, it baffles my mind that these people forget this. And it was the cooperation between white people and black people that set you free to do what you can do today.
And God bless her for having the ability to do this now. Like, I sometimes think we just are all so comfortable. Like,
but just enjoy it, man. Just, enjoy your Fourth. Do it any way you want to.
I would think that having the pandemic, and now of course the pandemic got very politicized as well, but like, you would think that knowing that there was a global pandemic that was really, I know some people are like, it didn't kill that many people, it's all the numbers are whatever, but people died, and now there are people who died or who were on ventilators, and so we know it was real. You would think after having to deal with that we would have come out saying that, okay, we're going to be better together, but we're not. For some reason, I think it's kind of like made people a little bit more closed off, because we were so used to being closed off for so many years while we were dealing with the pandemic. I don't know. All right, let's see what Amma has to say. She's got her arms up.
American flag to put on your home. Don't worry about it. Keep that money. Matter of fact, don't keep the money. Give it to black people for all the labor that they contribute here in the United States. And, just go broke. Go for broke giving your money to black people. When you show up at the bank and they ask, why are you filing for bankruptcy? Just say, my white guilt. And that banker will recognize how much of an ally you are towards the black community. And they'll give you another loan to start paying money out to all of the black people whose labor you use on a daily basis. Guys, this is too much for me. And I love how she takes whatever was happening in 1776 and uses that to justify the lack of celebration here in the year 2024 of the 4th.
Actually, she just uses it to justify her racism. I will stand by this 100%. Black people can be racist against white people. It is a fact. It's in the actual definition with prejudice. So just stop with the like, oh no, it's not in the definition. It's quite clearly in the definition. So if you're judging somebody in the color of their skin, you're a racist. Sorry, not sorry.
Of July. A lot was going on in 1776. A lot of crazy shit. Let's be honest. We had just barely discovered electricity. I think we can use a little bit of nuance and think about all the progress we've made since 1776, all the freedoms that she now gets to enjoy in this country since what took place on 1776, and think about a little bit of gratitude towards our country.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just not the most awful life in the world to be black in America right now. In fact, it's the best life you could possibly have really anywhere on this planet. So I'm not understanding why we can't give a little gratitude towards this country. Believe it or not, black people get to enjoy a lot of freedoms in this country. And even now, they're kind of given a leg up over other people. But we don't need to go there right now. We can move on. This next one is 10 ways you say the N-word without saying the N-word. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
10 ways you say the N-word without saying the N-word.
Oh my gosh, and our girl is back. I didn't even know that this was going to be the same woman. We can see the portraits in the back. Okay. She's just really doling out some education for us these days. Let's watch.
If you use any of these terms or phrases in reference to Black people, you are just as racist as the person that actually uses the N-word.
Wow.
Here are the words.
Okay.
Thug, ghetto, welfare queen, lazy, race baiter, race grifter, threatening, angry, dangerous. Or you say that we're playing the victim or we are a diversity hire. What you actually mean to say is the N-word. Just stop it. If you say these words or phrases, you are calling us the N-word.
Now, if I said that there's a difference between an N and an actual Black person, how would she define that?
Oh my God, that is so awful.
But it's true.
No, it's
it's
we're
true.
not going down that.
It's true.
If you say these ignorant racist terms or phrases around your children, you're
she'd
also
go, like,
teaching
look,
your
you're being
children
ignorant
to
and
be
racist.
racist.
Well, that's because she's ignorant. That's my point. You even hear Black people say the same fucking thing. I've seen educated Black men and women who come out and say this. They would call her racist. They would say she's a fucking idiot.
I think
It doesn't have to come from a white person. They will tell her, you are a fucking racist bitch. That's what they will say.
I think what ends up happening is they're like, you are. She says, "Don't say play the victim." Well,
But she's playing the victim.
But when you play the victim, you're not helping.
It's just like, okay, is she racist if she calls us white fragility? Like, because that's been something that's thrown at white people. Like, if we try to give our stance or our opinions on a discussion about race, all of a sudden it's like white fragility, and it's like, well, that's insulting.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times it's like they don't even want to hear our side of anything. But we live in where we live now. We're in an area which is very like 50-50, and even throw in some Hispanic and Muslim people, and we're in a very, very mixed area.
I don't know. I continue to think that in life, I don't have percentages, I don't have data. In my walk of life, I've run into people of all races, both customer-wise and people I work with who are majority of color. They don't act like this. They are some of the nicest motherfucking people I've ever met on the planet. And so I pray to God, and I do believe this, that people like this woman are in the minority. I really hope that they're in the very small minority.
I really don't think that the people in this neighborhood.
I've never run into people like this in my walk of life. Never.
We all somehow have not like burned down each other's houses because we hate each other so much. But I'm really serious. Like, our next door neighbors are Latino. The people behind us are African American. There's a couple of Latino people across the street.
The worst person we have a problem with is white, and he's next door.
The whitey next door is our
Doesn't
problem.
take care of his
He's
house.
Trashy.
Yeah.
Look, I'm talking bad about white trash. So that's what I'm trying to like.
You just have good people and bad people.
Yeah,
that's
what
what it
I'm
comes
like.
to.
I just hope that she is not thinking that like all white people are just out to get Black people.
Well, she's just basically making excuses why you can't judge her on anything. Like, it's like if I sit here and try to have a debate with her, anything I would say, like, she would say, well, you're calling me a victim, so now you're calling me the N-word, which is bullshit. That's a terrible analogy at all. Like, it's just bad.
I'm just like you. So I have good news and bad news for you. Here's the bad news. You're not as non-racist as you thought you were, and you're certainly not anti-racist. Here's the good news. You can unlearn all the racist crap you've been taught and reject white supremacist ideologies that you've believed for your entire life. Now, if you're ready to do that and start becoming a part of the solution instead of a part of the problem, go to that link on my profile, sign up for my webinar replay, or do my 5-day challenge, because it's time to do
I need to find this woman because I'm about to do her 5-day challenge.
This video just reeks of condescension. Can you guys smell that? It's crazy. The amount of talking down that is happening in this TikTok is wild. Now let's unpack some of the words that she said. I don't know if I remember them all, but she says if you use the word thug, a diversity hire, race baiter, race grifter, angry to describe somebody who's Black, I guess you're calling them the N-word.
She forgot the nappy-headed hoe part.
Oh my God.
What happens when you use these words towards people of other races? Because these words are usable in different instances. I guess it only matters if you're saying it towards Black people, which is just so emblematic of this type of woke person.
A diversity hire as well. Like, I mean,
Well, my boss is Hispanic, so I mean, what is she gonna say? He's one of the coolest motherfuckers I've ever met. He worked from the ground up to get to where he is. I'm like,
I think you're the only white person that works there.
no, I have a few.
There's a couple of whiteys.
Yep, but most of them are Black, and some speak Spanish. So it's like they're all fucking cool. Now I have some, even the dispatchers. So Bradley's white, but then there's a couple other Spanish, and then one other guy is white. He's a big, heavy dude, but they're all fucking cool, man. And nobody acts like assholes, and they don't fucking judge you on your race. I mean, I can't say this if they're not saying shit behind my back, but no one I've run into has been that way. Like, they're all very nice.
Yeah, and I think that's the way she's acting. Like,
yeah, like I could,
she's
like
acting like
I have to
everybody's
wonder
so
if I ever met
confrontational.
that woman, like how she would actually act. Like, would she actually be that stupid to act like an asshole?
yes, so she's okay enough with putting it out on TikTok, and she's selling her webinar.
That's terrible. And this is the kind of people that are poisoning society. Like, it's so sad.
I think that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
When you're promoting, like,
She'd rather
fight and
breed
be
fucking
yeah.
divisiveness than fucking bring people together. It's so sickening.
Because sometimes
to
the
say.
easiest way to bring people together is something simple as like his place where he works was kind of built from the ground up from another driver. So he's working with someone who really put in the work and the time to build this up. And he's Hispanic. So, but like, that's the whole idea, is nobody's being excluded. Everybody is working together.
And you can't tell me he didn't face some hardships, and he probably faced his own type of racism at some point in his life. But the reality is he just didn't make himself a victim. I know that's the N-word.
Stop using the N-word.
Yeah, right. He didn't have a victim complex to the point that he's like gave up and started blaming everybody else. He just worked, got himself his own DSP, and now he runs it and he makes good money. And he's fair and he takes care of his drivers, and he's a very cool dude. Like, that's all you can ask for, man. Just respect. There's no bitterness. You know, he doesn't look at me as a white guy and say, fuck this dude, you know. He probably had everything in life, you know.
He looks at you and said, "You're my diversity hire."
Right. Yeah. It's just, this woman's a nutcase, man.
I really...
Everything only matters when you're using it towards Black people, and they internalize everything as some sort of racist act against them. I'm sorry, but there are Black people who are thugs. There are Black people who are race baiters and race grifters. There are Black people who are angry. You can use those phrases without being accused of calling those people the N-word. And essentially what she's saying
Agreed.
is that as Black people, we should be free from any sort of criticism, because any sort of criticism or label that you place on us that we view in a negative light is equivalent to you saying the N-word and being a racist, which is how they safeguard themselves from having to take any accountability or responsibility for their actions, because you're the racist. They're not the problem. It's your criticism of them that is the problem. And now, not only do you have to be, against racism and not a racist in your own life, but you have to take it a step further and be something called anti-racist. And for those of you who don't know what anti-racist means, it means we make up a bunch of crazy rules that you have to submit to as a white person or as a non-Black person. And if you don't listen to them, we will call you a racist and say that you're not actively leading a life that is stopping the problem of racism. And you can hear that sort of tone in everything that she said in these past 2 TikToks. You need to come to us for us to tell you how to lead your lives. You need to look to us for permission, for guidance, and we will tell you exactly what to do as white people, and you will follow that because, I don't know, your ancestors hurt us, and for some, if not most white people, that's not even the case. So it's just crazy that this is the world that we live in now. We got to move on though. And, speaking of permission and guidance, here is a Black woman that's saying that white people need permission to comment on her social media posts.
If your skin is not brown, if you are not melanated, then you do not have the right to come under my videos talking back to my people. Your opinions are not wanted, nor are they relevant.
Oh, I'm going to find her.
You know, TikTok.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Maybe she's got YouTube.
Why do you feel like you need to come and keep saying something to my people? You need to ask me my permission before you speak or comment on my videos. You come under my video and say, Lord, may I please have your permission to say something? Then you wait for me to give you my
That's got to be a fucking act. It's got to be.
My permission before you start tapping, moving your little pasty fingers around on my page. You people have been.
Put up a TikTok.
She said pasty. She's a racist.
She's a racist.
Yep.
Sorry.
I have now declared calling me pasty means you're racist.
I'm just, you're putting yourself out there in the public and you're saying you can't comment. That's really not how it works, because there's a million keyboard warriors who just want to.
Well, she has no. I mean, she can block people, but at the end of the day, what she's done, it's two things. She's either trying to get the haters to come out full force, so people that really are racist against people of color will come out and say, "Oh yeah, you've made yourself a target. We're going to come at you," or she's basically just looking for attention and now wants people to come out and do this, and it's like. She can't stop anybody.
Imagine if a white person did
Oh,
this.
yeah, they'd be kicked off social media.
You would get. It would be such a like.
These are the problems that we see on Twitch and everything else, is that they'll cater to these kind of people that are racist and sexist with women as well. And then, but if it's turned around on them, whether, you know, if somebody complains about trans community or the gay community or people of color, well, they're immediately banned from whatever platform it's on. But they'll let these people do all the same hatred and actions like that and let them run rampant without any, you know, discipline or whatever. And it's just sad, man. It's like, this is the kind of shit that some of these platforms will breed.
If you put something up that's public, it's public, right?
Yeah.
Like, so she's telling people, if you're not brown, you need my permission to speak.
She doesn't understand how it works.
It's public. So like, you're now making it easier for people to be dicks to you by saying that.
Now, if she has a private account, which I don't know if you can private TikTok.
I don't know. I don't need another social media. I have way too much.
I mean, this is why when they were talking about doing away with TikTok, like the government, I was like, I didn't give a shit. Like, it's probably the best thing.
I'm not even on TikTok.
Right.
Talking way too much for way too long, and your time is officially up. It is Black Power forever.
Ooh, this is giving me PTSD. For those of you who don't know, I used to work for a left-leaning organization. You guys know I have a little like Black Power fist on my arm here. Super cool. Got that when I was 16. Don't get tattooed when you're 16. When I was working there, one of the moments that really woke me up and made me realize, oh, I'm in a very racist environment is actually rhetoric like this. We had a meeting and somebody said, you know, to all the white people in the room right now, maybe just don't talk to this meeting. In this meeting, let the most oppressed people speak. You've spoken for long enough, which is exactly what this woman just said. And there is so many racist just isms, I guess, being used in this video. She's saying, you know, my people, you people, your pasty fingers, referring to people as sort of a monolithic aggregate when it comes to white versus black. And I gotta say right now, do not lump me in with my people when you're making these TikTok videos, because I don't know you. And as far as what I've seen in this video, I don't support anything that you're saying. So I am not your people in the same way that all white people are not, you know, their people. It just doesn't make sense to lump all these people together. And that is in fact the very definition of racism. You're going to see more racism in these videos than you see out in the world when black people are claiming to experience it. So this just, again, blows my mind. And we have that same through line of you need my permission now as a black person in order to even speak. Yet at the same time, they'll accuse white people of existing within this power structure, a hierarchy where they are at the top. Really? If white people are at the top of the hierarchy, would they need to ask your permission to speak to you? I don't think so. So I don't know where this argument about power and racism really comes to play when this is the way that a lot of black activists are acting. You do not need permission to speak to somebody. You do not need permission to hop in their comment section. And quite honestly, these are the comment sections that need people going and saying something about how racist this sort of rhetoric actually is. So keep it up. I mean, the attitude on that one. Woo! Oh my gosh. She's a peach. Next one. Okay. We got 2 more to go, guys. Let's make it through.
White people, what's so hard about saying excuse me? Quickly. questions that need answers. Why are y'all so afraid to say excuse me? Are y'all afraid of saying excuse me to black people? Do y'all also not say excuse me to each other? Like, why are you so comfortable with just standing behind someone for minutes on end waiting for them to move rather than just saying, excuse me, I want to get past?
Okay, well, at least that one was short, sweet, and to the point. But again, with the condescension, answer quickly, answer quickly. I have to think about this one because I've met a lot of people of all races who don't say excuse me, who could use a little bit of teaching in the manners department, and maybe they skipped that in their childhood, and now I'm dealing with it in their adulthood. But, if I truly had to think about it and pick a race of people that fails to say excuse me the most, it would not be white people. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. As far as manners are concerned, I don't think white people are taking the cake in the lack thereof competition. I'll just say that. Now, again, this is just straight up racism towards a specific group of people. And I think when you view the world through the lens of race in this way and through this hierarchy of white people being at the top and black people being at the bottom, what you'll start to do is see white people who maybe don't have manners and they're treating you in some type of way, or they're not saying excuse me, and you'll recognize those instances more than you recognize them from other races because it's what you're looking for. The lens through which we view the world is really important. And if your lens is that white people are the oppressors, they're rude, they lack manners, they have power over us, they don't appreciate the work that we do, you're going to notice rudeness from white people more than you notice it from any other race. And then you get videos like this. And had you made this video about any other race, I think people would have had a lot to say. But in this world, we can be as racist as we want towards white people and nothing comes of it because they are the punching bags of modern society. Now, this last one, I thought we'd do something a little bit more complex. Within the realm of wokeness, you have this idea of intersectionality, that not only do you exist in, one marginalized group, but there are different marginalized groups based on other characteristics, and you can exist in two at the same time. Now, this one is going to make the claim that fat phobia that I guess larger people experience, or people with the body positivity movement experience, is in fact linked to racism. Okay, so you can exist in the intersection of blackness and fatness, and they all just connect with one another in this beautiful realm of bigotry. Let's watch this lady break it down. And this is a familiar face. We reacted to many of her videos on this channel.
Fat phobia should make you uncomfortable because it is intertwined with every single other system of oppression that exists. It is related to sexism, racism, homophobia, xenophobia.
Oh, is that like Burger King grease or something?
Know.
She had a burger.
Sweat stains, who knows what. I would be, if I was having an angry TikTok, I would make sure, I know you put yourself out there, there's going to be people saying shit. There's probably people saying shit about us all the time, but if you're talking about fat phobia and you have some kind of stain on your dress, I would not make that an easy target.
They just end up clowning themselves. That's
what I mean.
It's
she's making herself
all
a little bit
these people, even that one that supposedly does webinars, they just clown themselves.
I gotta find this bitch. I'm gonna do her webinar and be like, "You
the 5 days
me from
of
my racism. I didn't even know I had it. You told me."
Classism. And so when you talk about one, you talk about it all. Which is why I say it is irresponsible, disrespectful,
it is disrespectful,
and hateful
that dress
to come on this.
Well, look, man, life's unfair and people are assholes, but it's not against the law to be an asshole. So if someone calls you fat, they're just an asshole.
Just an asshole doesn't mean that they're racist. It just means they're dicks.
Right.
Fat phobia is honestly very real, and
the problem is, and this is why people say that modern society has gotten so soft, because we've now gotten to the point they're like, oh, you shouldn't say those things. Well, yeah, I mean, it's very rude and it's nasty, but the reality is it's American way. Go to another country, man. Try pushing your luck out there. I've seen somebody, I just saw a dude on a video, right? He does kick or rumble or something, right? So he walked up to a group of people, or a couple, and some in France, I think. And it was a couple black dudes, and he walks up, and they're filming, and for whatever reason, he's doing either a prank or he's just trying to antagonize this couple. They're kissing, and they're white, so he starts talking shit to them, and he's complaining that they're having PDA, I guess. Now, it could be for a shtick, I don't know, but the reality is it goes south. Like, she starts kind of yelling at him, like, mind your own business type shit. The white dude's kind of a big white dude, and they're kind of going back and forth, but no fists are thrown anyway or anything, but they're yelling, and the black guys are getting vulgar, and they're calling her whore. And then, like, some other dude who looks like he's Middle Eastern kind of walk up trying to figure out what's going on, get them to quit fighting with one another, like, verbally. All of a sudden, the black dude that started the whole thing pulls a gun, and he's trying to say, I'll cap your ass right now, don't be coming over here fucking with me. And so the couple walk away, and then the other guy, he leaves, and he gets some cops, and these two guys are like, hey, act normal. And they're coming down like this escalator, so the cops arrest him because they have it on film what's going on. But the black guy that started the whole thing is like, yeah, man, I'm doing what you're saying. Don't hurt me. Yeah, it's like it's just, again, victim mentality. I know it's the N word, but like, these guys go out being thugs with their TikToks, trying to harm and harass other people that they don't even know. And then this shit happens. Like, now the reality is they can be dicks. That's their freedom. Mm-hmm. But there are consequences. And in this case, when you pull a gun on somebody, that's a consequence. Or if for whatever reason that white dude decided to pound his dude, of course, he probably got jumped by the other two dudes that were there. But the reality is that he went looking for trouble. But the reality is, I get on this channel and I say all the time that people are going to be like, could say nasty things to me. They could disagree with me. Like, I'm fine with disagreements. Just be civil about it. But that doesn't mean I can force somebody to do that. If they want to come in, I've had people troll my webpage, and I just either, like, I don't understand what they're trying to say, and I'm kind of like, well, do I really want to engage with this? Like, it looks like it's just clickbait. So I just either delete the comment or block the person. That's it. But if I'm on like video, I'll debate people all day. But this chick, like, she's so angry. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, like, I don't believe anybody tells themselves that they're happy with the way they look. You and I have dealt with weight issues all our life. And we're still working on it, but we're better now than we kind of were in the past. But the reality is, like, you can't tell me you feel good about that. And I know it's sad. It's depressing. It can put your mind into a bad space. But it's not any kind of racism or anything like that. You're going to find mean people. There's also a lot of people that are supportive. So, like, if she were to tell me right now she's working on getting her weight down, I'd say good for you. But when you come at me like this, or just in general, talking about racism being attached to fat phobia, and you've got grease marks on your dress, I'm just going to bust on you. Like, it's not because I hate you. It's just because you're being an asshole, and I'm going to be an asshole. That's just
what she's becoming very aggressive.
Yeah.
I did want to say, though, like, it is fat phobia. Maybe is not the right word, but it has been proven that better looking people do get treated better.
Yeah.
Just because of,
it's called the beautiful ones.
Yeah, like, it's just like a self-conscious type. You will treat a prettier person nicer than you would an uglier person, and that includes weight. And they've even shown that, like, statistically heavier people have a harder time getting a job over a thinner person, etc. And it is not any kind of protected class. There's protected minority classes, there's protected, like, sexual orientation that is saying, like, you cannot discriminate against this when you're getting a job. But there's nothing with being ugly or overweight. Like, if you are, so I understand how it can make her angry because she is overweight a little bit, and she's talking about fat phobia. So she's very angry right now, but then she's lumping something else that's completely different in to her fat phobia, like, rant, and that's not really fair.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, finish this up.
and be fat phobic.
Whoa.
And that is all I have to say on the matter. Because I've already said too much on the matter.
I have a feeling that's not all she has to say. Again, considering that we're only halfway through the video, I think she's going to say a lot more.
And people are not uncomfortable enough for me.
Freudian slip.
They're too comfortable.
Just a regular slip, actually. I think she's just being pretty straightforward. She wants people to be uncomfortable.
And I know it talked about ushering people to their seats, sitting people down, but I need you all to get up out of your seats and stop being so complicit and complacent when it comes to fat phobia. Stand up and show up. Learn something.
See, the funny thing is, I don't even really come across fat stuff all the time, like in terms of people being fat phobic or just rude in that way. Like I see it occasionally, but nothing like I would see like sexism and racism
I
is
feel
bigger.
like we have become a lot more sympathetic and kinder to overweight people than when I was younger. And, you know, women just used to bully themselves into eating disorders. Like, and that's not a joke. It's the truth. Like, if you look back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and look at the fashion and look at like America's Next Top Model, the way that they would, these women who are already real thin, and they're telling them, you need to, if you're going to be posing from the side, you need to make sure you don't have a belly, and there's really no belly there. I think fat phobia nowadays has come so far compared to, you know, when I was younger, and I'm like a size 8, 9, which is a normal size for a teenager. And I really wanted to be like a size 3 or 4, and it's just never going to happen. And it didn't happen. The crazy shit that we would do, and the availability of diet pills back then, I'm talking like just over the counter diet pills that are not available anymore. You used to be able to go online and get prescription strength diet pills for without a doctor note or anything.
Yeah.
So I really think that we have become a little bit more accepting, and, you know, yes, there are overweight people, and yes, we want the body positivity, but she's really angry. Wow.
Yeah. But part of that, I think, is again, like inner stuff, like the inner depression coming out, because there's no way that anybody says that they're overweight that they're happy about it, because one, you don't feel good a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, maybe she's more like, I accept it.
Well, she accepts
happy,
it, but
like,
I accepted it too, and I remember telling you, like, it is what it is. But deep down, I didn't like it, and so a lot of people have a hard time coming to grips with that, with their weight. So like they know it, but it's hard, you know, when people say, well, you know, I push back against people who say that it's so easy to lose weight. It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
I've been fighting with it since I was 10 years old.
It's not.
perpetually
Sure, controlling
on a
your
diet my
eating,
entire
controlling what you
life.
eat and stuff like that plays a part, but there's a lot of other factors that go into this. Depression's a big part of it, but that's a topic for another day. But that's the reality. Is I push back on people like I'll sometimes dive into Matt Walsh saying that ADHD doesn't exist. Like, that's bullshit too. But the reality is, like, this woman's clearly facing some inner demons, and she's lashing out because people might be being really mean and crude to her in some way, which I can honestly say that if you're battling stuff mentally that much, internet is the worst place for you to be.
And now
It's
she's
the
putting
worst.
herself out there as a
Even more,
target.
yeah.
But then she's also yelling at people, saying, if you're fat phobic, you're racist, or
Yeah,
you're
and that's dumb.
transphobic, or
That's dumb.
whatever. They're like saying fat phobic belongs to everything. So if you're a fat phobic person, you're also this, and this.
What about all the fat white people? It just make sense, as Amala would usually say.
I mean, like, I don't know.
All right, well, that's going to conclude this episode. Pretty interesting topics to talk about today. So, as usual, thank you, Neko, for joining me. for the rest of you, if you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. And I'll be giving out an update at some point of the stuff coming up in the next few weeks once I get it all in order.
Okay.
But till then, thank you all for tuning in and checking this out. And we'll see you next time on the Middletown Radio Podcast.